Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakacharya Statirasata Śrīmad Jagadguru Siddhaswarupa Ananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakacharya Statirasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Ganges Maya Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's Road. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga Gaur Premananda. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulunmilitam Jena Tajmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaya Darati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torch light of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet? Haribo, namaste everyone. Haribo Damodarasi. Hello, Kayla. Happy. So we're reading from the 8th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is chapter 3, Jagendra's Prayers of Surrender. These prayers are so profound, and the purports by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada are so wonderful. We're going to be just doing a lot of reading of the purports today, I think. I feel like you'd be doing an injustice if we didn't present them pretty much in their entirety today. Oh, original sound off?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah.
Is that any better?
It's fine. I didn't notice anything bad. I was just saying Haribo.
Oh, okay. Well, I've kind of changed my setup. I have the microphone further away from the computer, so hopefully we won't hear so much fan noise from it now.
Never noticed it much before.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jagendra's Prayers of Surrender. Shri Sukadev Goswami continued. Thereafter, the king of the elephants, Jagendra, fixed his mind in his heart with perfect intelligence and chanted a mantra which he had learned in his previous birth as Indradumna, and which he remembered by the grace of Krishna. So who does this remind us of? Someone who's,
maybe?
Yes, Jada Bharat. He was a nice devotee and very scholarly, and then because of an accidental attraction to a deer, developed that affection for the deer. Then at the time of his death, was focused on the deer, and he had to take birth in a deer body. But by Krishna's grace, even though he was in the body of a deer, he was able to remember everything that had happened and remember all of the advancement he had made. So similarly, we find that Gajendra was King Indradumna in his previous birth. And by the grace of Krishna, he was able to remember the things he had learned and the advancement he had made from that previous birth. Purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There's a lot of Sanskrit in these purports. I'm just going to kind of skip over most of it, except when there's not a direct translation of it. Or such remembrance is described in Bhagavad Gita 643 and 644. In these verses, it is assured that even if a person is engaged in devotional service falls down, he is not degraded, but is placed in a position in which he will, in due course of time, remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained later, Gajendra was formerly King Indradumna, and somehow or other in his next life, he became king of the elephants. Now, Gajendra was in danger, and although he was in the body other than that of a human being, he remembered the stotra he had chanted in his previous life. Yatate cha tato bhuya samhishadho kuru nandana. To enable one to achieve perfection, Krishna gives one the chance to remember him again. This is proved here, for although the king of the elephants, Gajendra, was put in danger, this was for a chance for him to remember his previous devotional activities, so that he could immediately be rescued by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is just another example of how Krishna is pure love, and that he's always acting for the benefit of his devotees. And to the materialistic-minded person, it may appear odd that someone who was a devotee in their previous life is put into such a condition where their very life is being threatened. Gajendra, if you remember from the previous chapter, he's been in this battle now for 1,000 years with a crocodile attached to his leg, trying to pull him deeper into the water, and Gajendra's trying to pull the crocodile out. And the whole time that Gajendra's in the water, he's in a suffering condition because he's not in his element. He can't eat, he can't sleep, he can't receive any help from his other elephant friends, and he's at a great disadvantage. Whereas the crocodile is in his element and therefore is getting stronger and stronger as the battle goes on. So there was, because of our envious nature, that's why we came to this material world, we have a tendency to want to criticize in order to make ourselves look better than others. So we have this tendency to criticize. Well, why is Krishna loves me unconditionally? Why is he loves everyone unconditionally? Why is he put in his devotee into such a condition of suffering for 1,000 years and complete anxiety and having to fight for his life and being like this and like that? But the answer is given here. This is all Krishna's arrangement so that the person who was in the body of Indradumna and is now in the body of Gajendra can come to that point of actual surrender to Krishna, where he realizes that without Krishna's mercy, without Krishna's protection, without Krishna's mercy and love, I have no shelter in this world or in the next. And so being brought to this point of complete surrender, the devotee actually takes full shelter of Krishna. Continuing with the purport. It is imperative, therefore, that all devotees in Krishna consciousness practice chanting some mantra. Certainly, one should chant the Hare Krishna mantra, which is the Maha mantra, or great mantra. And also, one should practice chanting Chintamani Pakara Sadmashu, or the Nistinga Stotra. Ito Nashringa Parato Nashingo, Yato Yamitato Nashinga. Every devotee should practice in order to chant some mantra perfectly, so that even though he may be imperfect in spiritual consciousness in this life, in his next life, he will have Krishna consciousness, even if he becomes an animal. Of course, a devotee should try to perfect his Krishna consciousness in this life, for simply by understanding Krishna and his instructions, after giving up this body, one can return home back to Godhead. Even if there is some fall down, practice of Krishna consciousness never goes in vain. For example, Ajamil in his boyhood practiced chanting the name Narayan under the direction of his father. But later, in his youth, he fell down and became a drunkard, woman hunter, rogue, and thief. Nonetheless, because of chanting the name Narayan for the purpose of calling his son, whom he had named Narayan, he became advanced, even though he was involved in sinful activities. Therefore, we should not forget the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra under any circumstances. It will help us in the greatest danger, as we find in the life of Gajendra. So what's the old saying? Practice makes perfect. And there's so many things, just like we find in this world, that through practice we can learn to do some things, right? It's like playing the guitar. They call it muscle memory, where your fingers just automatically go to the right strings and the right fret on the chords to make the chords that you need to play the guitar. And of course, some people are much better playing guitar than others, but it's all the same process. They spend hours and hours and hours and days and years just practicing, till it comes to the point where they do it without having to consciously think about it. So similarly, it's being advised that we apply this same process to our spiritual life, that we have mantras and Krishna that we chant so regularly and meditate on so deeply that it becomes second nature to us. And then you'll find that when you're doing other things, whether you're doing your work activities, you're doing your recreational activities, or you're lying down to take your sleep at night, these things automatically come and present themselves again to you in your mind. There's a really sweet lecture by Srila Prabhupada. He was explaining that he was talking about trying to control the mind. And he's saying, you're telling the mind, okay, mind, I want you to stop bringing me all this nonsense, right? And quit bringing me naked women in my thoughts, or this in my dreams, and this kind of stuff. I want to think of Krishna. He says, well, and the mind says, well, if you want me to remember Krishna, you're going to have to put Krishna in me during the day, because that's the way the mind works. It's like a tape recorder. Whatever you record, it just plays that stuff back. Of course, the mind tends to pervert things as it plays them back and distorts them until they're almost unrecognizable. But the same process is there. By hearing and chanting as much as possible, then the mind will start to become our friend instead of our enemy and actually help us remember Krishna. Text 2. The king of the elephants, Gajendra, said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because of him, this material body acts due to the presence of spirit, and he is therefore the root cause of everyone. He is worshipable for such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva, and he has entered the heart of every living being. Let me meditate upon him. The fourth. In this verse, the words itak chit atmakam are very important. The material body certainly consists only of material elements, but when one awakens to Krishna conscious understanding, the body is no longer material, but spiritual. The material body is meant for sense enjoyment, whereas the spiritual body engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, a devotee who engages in the service of the Supreme Lord and who constantly thinks of him should never be considered to have a material body. It is therefore enjoined, Gurushu Naramati. One should stop thinking of the spiritual master as an ordinary human being with a material body. Arche Vishno Shiladi. Everyone knows that the deity in the temple is made of stone, but to think that the deity is merely stone is an offense. Similarly, to think that the body of the spiritual master consists of material ingredients is offensive. Atheists think that devotees foolishly worship a stone statue as God and an ordinary man as the guru. The fact is, however, that by the grace of Krishna's omnipotence, the so-called stone statue of the deity is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the body of the spiritual master is directly spiritual. A pure devotee who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service should be understood to be situated on the transcendental platform. Sagunam samahijantam brahmaputaya kalpate. Let us therefore offer our obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy so-called material things also become spiritual when they are engaged in spiritual activity. And of course, the analogy is given between the iron rod that is fire. You take a piece of iron, take an iron rod, and it has certain characteristics, right? It's cold, it's hard, it's stiff, it's dull, does not give off light. But if you take that rod and you place it in the fire and you leave it in the hot fire continuously, what happens to that iron rod? It gradually takes on all the characteristics of fire, right? It becomes hot, it starts to give off heat, it starts to give off light. And if you actually leave it in a hot enough fire long enough, it actually changes its state from a solid to a liquid. So similarly, by these material elements, what are the material elements?
Earth, water, fire.
Earth, right? But these are all what? They're all Krishna's energies, right? And Krishna is spiritual. So this is his inferior energy. It's called inferior because it has no consciousness. But it's still one of Krishna's energies. And Krishna is all spiritual. So in that sense, it is a spiritual energy, but it's inferior energy. It's inferior because, like I said, it has no consciousness. It has no ability to act on its own or to have any kind of will. So through the presence, the material body is a dead lump of matter. But as Gajendra is saying here in this prayer, that it is only due to the presence of the supersoul as being entered into the heart of every living being, and the presence of the spirit soul within the body, that the body appears to be alive. So this inferior material energy takes on the characteristics of having life. So likewise, if that spirit soul who is inhabiting that material body is in pure Krishna consciousness, then it's a mistake to think of that body in terms of material, being a material body. When we think of material energy, we think of what? We think of ignorance. We think of illusion, right? But the spiritual body of the spiritual master or of the incarnation of Krishna is not in ignorance. It's in complete spiritual knowledge. Continuing with the purport. Omkara, Pranava, is the symbolic sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Tat Sat Ito Nirdesho Brahmanasti Vidhasmita. The three words, Om Tat Sat, immediately invoke the Supreme Person. Therefore, Krishna says that he is Omkara in all the Vedic mantras, Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. The Vedic mantras are pronounced beginning with Omkara to indicate immediately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, for example, begins with the words Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There's no difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, and Omkara, Pranava. We should be careful to understand that Omkara does not indicate anything Nirakara or formless. Indeed, this verse immediately says, Om Namo Bhagavate. Bhagavan is a person. This Omkara is the representation of the Supreme Person. Omkara is not meant to be impersonal, as the Mayavadi philosophers consider it to be. This is distinctly expressed here by the word Purushaya. The supreme truth is addressed by The supreme truth addressed by Omkara is Purusha, the Supreme Person. He is not impersonal. Unless he is a person, how can he control the great stalwart controllers of this universe? Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are the supreme controllers of this universe. But Lord Vishnu is offered obeisances even by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, this verse uses the word Parashaya, which indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by exalted demigods. Parashaya means Paramaheshvara. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are Ishvaras, great controllers, but Lord Vishnu is Parameshvara, the supreme controller. It's just so wonderful that there is so much packed into these verses, right? You just start meditating on them, and just so much just comes forth from them. Text 3. The Supreme Godhead is the supreme platform on which everything rests, the ingredient by which everything has been produced, and the person who is created and is the only cause of this cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, he is different from the cause and the result. I surrender unto him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is self-sufficient in everything. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9:4, the Lord says, Mayam tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta mirtimya. I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but everything rests upon my energy, just as an earthen pot rests on the earth. The place where an earthen pot rests is also earth. Then again, the earthen pot is manufactured by a potter, whose body is a product of earth. The potter's wheel with which the pot is made is an expansion of earth, and the ingredients from which the pot are made are also earth. As confirmed in the Shruti mantra, Yatova imani bhutani jayante, Yena jatanti jivanti yat prayanti abhinashvavanti. The original cause of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after being annihilated, everything enters into him. Prakritim yanti mahikam. Thus the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Godhead, Lord Ramachandra or Lord Krishna, is the original cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Ardir Govinda Sarvakarna Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. The Lord is the cause for everything, but there is no cause for him. Sarva kalvi idam brahma matyastani sarvabhutani nachaham sheshu avishtata. Although he is everything, his personality is different from the cosmic manifestation. So if you first hear this, it almost sounds like a bit of word jugglery. That, oh, Krishna is the cause of everything, everything rests in him, everything comes from him, yet he is not there, right? But what it's trying to convey is the concept that Krishna is totally inconceivable and omnipotent. He cannot be contained or limited by anything. So even though everything in this manifested cosmic world is created and manifested by Krishna directly or indirectly, you will not find, and even though Krishna has entered into every atom and the heart of every living being within it, still Krishna remains separate and independent and complete on his own. And you're not going to be able to understand this with the material mind. It's just simply not possible. You can only understand this through realization. And Gajendra is going to get into this later. And this realization is by the grace of Krishna. Krishna can give you the understanding by which you can know him in truth, without doubt. We hear these things, read the different pastimes of Krishna, and immediately the mind tries to start doubting, tries to start poke holes in this and poke holes in that. Why? Because it's the mind's job. It's the mind's job to help keep you in the illusion that you are the Lord of the universe. You are the Lord of your life. There is no one above you. So of course, when someone starts presenting the Supreme Personality of Godhead to you, your mind's job is to try to defeat it, try to, no, you don't have to listen to that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You are the Supreme. You're fine. You don't, we're good. Don't let that bother you. But no. We are part and parcel of Krishna. We are therefore Krishna. Right? How can we be anything else? We come from Krishna. We're of Krishna. We're simply in any separation we have in our mind is due to illusion. This doesn't mean that we're not individual living entities who can relate to Krishna in different ways and different rasas. But it means that we have no factual independence from Krishna. Text 4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his own energy, keeps this cosmic manifestation visible and, again, sometimes renders it invisible. He is both the supreme cause and the supreme result, the observer and the witness in all circumstances. Thus, he is transcendental to everything. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has multi-potencies. Parashya Shaktir Vidhaiva Suryate. Therefore, as soon as he likes, he uses one of his potencies, and by that expansion, he creates his cosmic manifestation. Again, when the cosmic manifestation is annihilated, it rests in him. Nonetheless, he is infallibly the supreme observer. Under any circumstances, the Supreme Lord is changeless. He is simply a witness and is aloof from all creation and annihilation. So what does this mean when it says that he is changeless?
He's always Krishna. He's always him.
Yes.
I don't know.
Right?
That one blows my mind a little, though.
Well, you look at, we have a tendency to look at everything, or we're like the frog in the well, right? We judge everything according to our experiences in this material world, and not even this limited this material world, but limited this lifetime in this material world. And what do we see? We see everything is constantly going through changes, right? We had a little baby's body, then that body became a toddler body, then that body became a youthful body, and now most of us are experiencing the beginnings or middle or the getting towards the end of old age, right? Our body's constantly changing. Everything's constantly changing, right? We build or purchase a house, and what? As soon as it's finished, it immediately begins to deteriorate, fall apart. We have to spend so much time trying to maintain it, right? Everything's constantly changing. Everything's breaking down. This is the third law of thermodynamics, that matter left in a undisturbed state will go from a state of high complexity to low complexity. It starts to break down. But Krishna is not like that. Krishna never changes. He doesn't go through, and this is defeating the Mayavadi's philosophy that, somehow or another we are God, but we've been covered by Maya, and we have to stay to remember that we are God again. This is nonsense. Krishna never forgets who he is. Or if he may pretend to forget for a small moment for benefit of one of his pastimes, but he's not placed under the ignorance of the material modes of nature like we are. And his body never deteriorates, right? We have to constantly do what? We have to be eating food. We have to be drinking liquids. We have to be doing exercise. All these things to try to maintain this body. And guess what? It still falls apart, right? It starts to get all weird. Skin starts to try to kill you, through different skin cancers. Your different organs get corrupted with different cancers and try to kill you. All these different things are always changing. But Krishna has no such challenges. Text 4. No, text 5, right? Right. In due course of time, when all the causative and effective manifestations of the universe, including the planets and their directors and maintainers, are annihilated, there is a situation of dense darkness. Above this darkness, however, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I take shelter of his lotus feet. Purport. From the Vedic mantras, we understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is above everything. He is supreme, above all the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. He is the supreme controller. When everything disappears by the influence of his energy, the cosmic situation is one of dense darkness. The Supreme Lord, however, is the sunshine. As confirmed in the Vedic mantras, Adaitya Varnam Tamasya Parashat. In our daily experience, when we on earth are in the darkness of night, the sun is always luminous somewhere in the sky. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Sun, always remains luminous, even when the entire cosmic manifestation is annihilated in due course of time. Text 6. An artist on stage, being covered by attractive dresses and dancing with different movements, is not understood by his audience. Similarly, the activities and features of the supreme artist cannot be understood even by the demigods or great sages, and certainly not by those who are unintelligent, like animals. Neither the demigods and sages nor the unintelligent can understand the features of the Lord, nor can they express in words his actual position. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. So before we read the purport, this is actual intelligence. We're all seeking protection. We're all seeing that on moment to moment basis that we're being threatened. Our existence in this world is being threatened, whether we're consciously or only subconsciously aware of it. It's always there, affecting our consciousness, at least on the subtle platform. But unfortunately, most people take shelter of infallible soldiers, things that can't really protect them. Yeah, fallible soldiers. Thank you. Not infallible. See? Yeah. Mind is constantly making mistakes. But Gajendra, due to his advancement in his previous life, is now taking shelter of an infallible soldier. Report. A similar understanding was expressed by Kunti Devi. The Supreme Lord exists everywhere, within and without. He even exists within the heart. Sarvasya Chitta Hridi Sanivishtu. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshya Arjuna Trishtati. Thus it is indicated that one can find the Supreme Lord within one's heart. There are many, many yogis trying to find him. Dayana Vishta Tad Gati Manasha Parashanti Yam Yogina. Nonetheless, even great yogis, demigods, saints, and sages have been unable to understand the bodily features of the great artist, nor could they understand the meaning of his movements. What then is to be said of ordinary speculators, like the so-called philosophers of this material world? For them, he is impossible to understand. Therefore, we must accept the statements given by the Supreme when he kindly incarnates to instruct us. We must simply accept the word of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Krishna, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in their footsteps. Then it may be possible for us to know the purpose of their incarnations. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatata. Tatva deham punar janma nyaiti mam etasarjana. Bhagavad Gita 4:9. If by the Lord's grace one can understand him, one will immediately be delivered, even within his material body. The material body will no longer have any function, and whatever activities take place with the body will be activities of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one may give up his body and return home back to Godhead. An artist on stage being covered by attractive dresses and dancing with different movements is not understood by his audience. Right? So you understand that? He's not understood. People are thinking that he's the character that he's playing. They're being fooled by the dress and the movements and the words being spoken. And they're thinking, oh, this is this personality. But no, you're not knowing that person at all. You're simply perceiving what he's projecting through a disguise and through whatever, right? For whatever purpose it is. So knowing Krishna is only possible through Krishna revealing himself to you. We just had a dear friend of ours, known for over 40 years, Avadhuta Das, just went back to Krishna. And it was externally a difficult process. His body developed dementia, and over the course of 5 years, something like that, 5 years, he became more and more detached from that physical form, right? We're all thinking, oh, this is Avadhuta, right? The body still looked the same. He's still 6'2" or 3 inches tall, whatever he was, and kind of gangly and whatever, he was 72, he didn't have any gray hair. Voice still sounded the same. But the personality began to slip, right? As he became, he was still there within the body, making it appear to be alive. Because the spirit soul was present, the body was there, and was still going through the motions. It was still eating, it was still sleeping, still protecting itself. But over the course of time, it became more and more difficult to relate to him in the way that we used to, right? It was no longer possible for him to make sense out of the activities in the material world. You would ask him to do some simple task, and his brain wasn't able to process it. Yeah, you could tell Avadhuta was still there. Your friend was still there, even though his connection with that body had changed. His control over that body had changed, and it slackened. Prabhupada sometimes give the analogy of an old coconut. As a coconut dries up, the meat inside becomes more and more detached from the shell. Find a really old coconut, you can actually pick it up and kind of rattle it because the meat's pulled away. So he went more and more internal. And we were no longer able to, at the end, relate to him as our friend the way we could before. But he had shifted from an external consciousness to an internal consciousness. And he was relating to his spiritual master and Krishna on the internal platform, hidden from our vision. And through Krishna's kindness, because his family, he had a very nice wife, 2 wonderful children, grandchildren, who loved him very much. And it was going to be very painful for them to lose his association. But through Krishna's arrangement, this attachment was gradually broken down a bit, so that when he did finally leave his body, it wasn't such a painful experience in that way. They were able to feel, oh, our dear Avaduta has now been relieved from that engagement of that material body. And so instead of being a situation of lamentation, it was more of a situation of celebration. Oh, our dear friend is now free of this material world. He's not coming back again. He's back where he belongs with Krishna. Hopefully he's saving a seat for us. So when we get there, we catch up with him, plug into what's going on. But this is the beauty of Krishna. Everything he does is for the benefit of his children. Whether they're acting as his devotee or whether they're acting as his enemy, doesn't matter. He's still, everything Krishna does is for the benefit of everyone. It's only due to our limited ability to see the big picture and understand things that we're not able to perceive sometimes. Text 7 rather. Renunciates and great sages who see all living beings equally, who are friendly to everyone, and who flawlessly practice in the forest the vows of brahmacharya, vanaprastha, and sannyas, desire to see the all-auspicious lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. May that same Supreme Personality of Godhead be my destination. Report. This verse describes the qualifications for devotees or persons highly elevated in spiritual consciousness. Devotees are always equal to everyone, seeing no distinction between lower and higher classes. Pandita Sama Darshina. They look upon everyone as a spirit soul who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are competent to search for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the friend of everyone, Surdharm Sarva Bhutanam, they act as friends of everyone on behalf of the Supreme Lord, making no distinction between one nation or another, or one community and another. They preach Krishna consciousness, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita everywhere. Thus, they are competent to see the lotus feet of the Lord. Such preachers in Krishna consciousness are called Paramahamsas. As indicated by the word Vimukta Sangha, they have nothing to do with material conditions. One must take shelter of such a devotee in order to see the Supreme Personality of God. So if you remember back in the 7th canto, in the 7th canto, when Prahlad Maharaj was being questioned by his father about what valuable things he had learned in school, because he was been educated by the sons of his father's spiritual master, how to become a great diplomat and politician. And Prahlad responded, I have not learned anything in school whatsoever. Trying to teach is on the platform of the bodily platform, bodily identification. It's all a matter of seeing this person is my friend, this person is my enemy. Therefore, he didn't like it. Because Prahlad was seeing everything as it actually is. He's seeing everyone as the part and parcel, as the son of Krishna, the child of Krishna. Therefore, he loved everyone equally. So any teachings that were about seeing this person as my friend, this person is my enemy, this person is higher, this person is lower, Prahlad wanted nothing to do with any of it. He simply wanted to help educate everyone to the fact that your only happiness will be found when you are loving Krishna. And when you're loving Krishna, you're naturally loving all of Krishna's parts and parcels as well. Now, that doesn't mean we're in this material world, we've taken on these material bodies, we have certain responsibilities. And so therefore we have to do some things. Sometimes we have to act on that platform, right? Just like you don't go up and pet the tiger. Oh, this tiger is part and parcel of Krishna. He's my god brother, right? Go up and pet the tiger and you get eaten. No, you have to, the devotee's not stupid. He appreciates, that there are certain things that are happening in this material world and you have to act accordingly. But even though you have to have certain external activities, and you may say certain things on an external platform, the devotee should always, at least internally, be seeing everyone as Krishna's part and parcel. Seeing everyone equally. Everyone is the loving servant of Krishna, and therefore my god brother and my god sister, making no distinction.
But still relating to them in different ways.
Right, but still as the actor, relating to them on the external platform, but not taking it that seriously, right? So even like now, right, here in the US, we got the big political scene going on and everybody's being encouraged to take sides with this side or take sides with that side, and they're very busy demonizing the people on the so-called other side and finding ways to criticize them and to belittle them and to whatever, right? This is not meant for the devotees to get lost in, right? You may take some civil responsibility and register and vote to try to make a better situation, we can try to make a situation that's more conducive for spreading the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But we shouldn't get lost in it, wrapped up and start thinking that, oh, this person is my enemy or my friend according to who they're supporting politically or whatever. We still have to keep our actual equilibrium. So this is the the dance of the material world. We're here, we've got to deal with the things, we've got certain circumstances that we're going to be presented with. We have to deal with them accordingly, take care of things. But don't let things overwhelm you. Don't let things distract you. What was that nice prayer by Bhakti Siddhanta? Make your way through this world in whatever way you can. But keeping foremost in your consciousness that you are the servant of Krishna. Yes, we miss Avadhuta Das. He was a very nice friend, a very nice devotee. But we don't let his losing that association devastate our lives. We still go on with our other relationships and our service to our spiritual master and our service to Krishna. Doesn't mean that we don't have any feelings, doesn't mean we don't have any emotions. But they're tempered. They're in perspective. We have this perspective because we're given vision by our spiritual master and Krishna in the specific succession. So we can see things as they actually are. All right. Anyone have anything they want to comment on or questions, or you want to add something?
I have part of that quote from Bhakti Siddhanta handy.
Okay.
It says, well, this is the second part after the first part where he says, make your way through this temporary material world in whatever way you can, always keeping your worship of the Lord foremost in your minds. I'm paraphrasing that part. Here's the second part. Do not give up devotional service, even if there's innumerable dangers, countless insults, and endless harassment. Do not become disheartened that most people in this world do not accept the message of unalloyed devotional service. Never give up your devotional service in hearing and chanting about Krishna, which is your everything. Always chant the holy name, becoming more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. That's all. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Of it.
So, and this was in reference to what was going on at the time. When Bhaktivinoda made his appearance, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya had almost practically been lost. They had been lost through corruption. And the state of the reputations of Vaishnavas was very low among the population. This is the nature of the material world. Just kind of like that law, third law of thermodynamics, right? That if there's a way to corrupt the message of Krishna, we'll find a way to do it. And until you become a pure devotee, there's going to be this tendency to corrupt things, So it was a great struggle to actually defeat the corrupted teachings of Lord Chaitanya and present them in their pure form. You had the so-called descendants of Nityananda Prabhu, who were saying that, only people born in their bloodline could be spiritual masters, right? Even though Lord Chaitanya was taught everyone should be guru, right? By my command, be guru and save the land. They're saying, oh no, unless you're a direct descendant of Lord Nityananda, you're not qualified. Nonsense like that. Then you had the Prakrita Sahajiyas that were, men were dressing up like women and having rasa dances, or they were getting young girls to dance with them and having rasa dances in the forest, taking everything very cheaply. So many different ways. And there were all these different impersonal misconceptions about Vaishnavism. And even the chanting, the congregational chanting had been degraded to the point where instead of going out chanting Krishna's names to try to deliver the general population, it was used as a means of begging. They would just go to a place of business or whatever and just bang on cymbals and chant really loud and just try to be as annoying as possible until someone gave them some money so they would go away, right? And so it was just, they had all these different kind of things. And the Smarta Brahmins, all these people had taken Lord Chaitanya's teachings and Sankirtan movement and corrupted it and were using it for their own material gain in different ways, And so it was kind of like when Jesus had to go into the temple, right, and chunk out the money changers and everything else. It was this big battle to unseat those in power who had corrupted the teachings. And so Bhaktisiddhanta, when he was out, he would travel all over the country and India preaching against this, and the Smarta Brahmins and the different people who he was indirectly threatening their power base by exposing them as being charlatans, were very upset. And they made various attempts on his life to try to kill him, hiring different dacoits and thugs to try to kill him. They was doing a curriculum one time, and they got these guys and they gave them to get this big wagon full of broken bricks. They were going to attack him and stone him to death with these bricks. But Krishna arranged it so he was able to find out about the plot and not go there that day. Anyway, so those are the kind of struggles that Bhaktisiddhanta is referring to. It was a very uphill battle he was fighting to bring the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to light. I think it was when Bhaktivinoda was trying to find a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think it took him like 8 years just to get a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita so he could read it. So they have a very large debt to Bhaktivinoda and Bhaktisiddhanta for their efforts to not only bring Lord Chaitanya's teachings to the West, but also just to resurrect them in India itself. This material world is a very dangerous place. So we're very fortunate there. In one sense, people say, oh, we're very unfortunate we were born in the West and brought in need and not understanding this or that, so many things. But at the same time, we were actually protected. We weren't exposed to all of these misconceptions. And then when we heard about Lord Chaitanya's movement, it was fresh. And we heard it from the pure devotee. We heard Bhagavad Gita as it is, not all of these corrupted versions of the Bhagavad Gita from the impersonalist and the atheist who were trying to, minimize who Krishna was. So it was actually, in a lot of ways, very fortunate to in a place where Bhagavad Gita had never been heard of, and Chaitanya Charitamrita had never been heard. So again, just another example of Krishna's protecting us, guiding us, helping us in ways that on the surface may seem hard to understand. Anything else? No?
I'm sorry. One thing just came to my mind, and that's, I remember Balakiyadas saying to me a long time ago, or talking about how he had heard from Bhaktivedanta that anybody who's chanting on the planet right now, you know, would have had contact with Lord Chaitanya when he was on the planet. Maybe I'm misremembering or hearing that wrong, but just that idea, I don't know, it's kind of amazing. But just the mercy we're getting. But anyway, sorry, I don't know what I'm saying.
I'd never heard that.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably muddling it, so I'm sorry. Anyway, it just came to my mind.
Well, this goes all back to the same thing of, our because we don't know what birth we had in our last life, right? We don't know what activities we performed. We don't know, so many things. We don't know the journey that has brought us to where we are now. So it's kind of, Krishnadas is always quoting Srila Prabhupada saying, all's well that ends well, right? You don't have to worry about your previous lives or whatever. Just be grateful that you've come to this point where you've been able to come in contact with Krishna and his pure representatives, the Parampara. And now you have everything you need to live an actual, hopeful, purposeful life. So, some people, there's so many ways to get distracted. Okay, so we'll chat for a few minutes.
Haribol, original sound?
Namaste, thank you.
Thank you. We need original sound to hear your guitar.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There we go. Krishna Prastaya Shimate Sira Swarupananda Amaham Saite Nami Namah Vishnu Daya Krishna Prastaya Shimate Sira Swarupananda Amaham Saite Nami Namo Sira Swarupananda Amaham Sanam Karuna Swarupaya Hare Krishna Prastayate Namo Sira Swarupananda Amaham Sanam Karuna Swarupaya Hare Krishna Prastayate Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharane conversation. See your body, just the Desha Tarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Jaya Vrindavan, Shri Govinda Gopinath, Madana Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Jaya Vrindavan, Shri Govinda Gopinath, Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Guru, Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya 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 Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya 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 Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Haribol. Haribol.